Welcome to the Author's Attic, a production of Social Problems, the official journal of the Society for the Study of Social Problems, SSSP. I'm Devin Goss, and today I'll be joined by Dr. Veronica Terriquez to discuss her new article. The paper is entitled Intersectional Mobilization, Social Movement Spillover, and Queer Youth Leadership in the Immigrant Rights Movement, and it'll appear in the August 2015 issue of Social Problems. Let's welcome Veronica Terriquez.
Undocumented youth have been an active part of the immigrant rights movement for about 15 years now. These undocumented young people are sometimes referred to as dreamers because of their support for the Federal DREAM Act that would provide a pathway to citizenship for many of them, as well as their support for state DREAM Acts that would provide financial aid or other educational and social benefits. In this article, I outlined some of the social mechanisms that have enabled undocumented queer youth to exercise leadership in this immigrant rights movement. For the purpose of this article, I use the term queer to refer to individuals who identify as gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, or with some other non-heterosexual identity. LGBTQ members of this movement started becoming more visible when they adopted the gay and lesbian movement's coming out strategy. Minority identity categories can be associated with hardship, but they can also function as a source of political power. Social movements frame identities in order to empower and politicize individuals from marginalized identity groups. While most movements focus on a single identity, it is possible for movements to adequately address issues of diversity or engage in what I call intersectional mobilization. I define intersexual mobilization as the recognition and activation of actors' multiple identities in order to foster participation in a movement. Elaborating on Bill Ganson's work, I argue that intersectional mobilization can occur at multiple levels of identity formation within a movement, at the broader movement level, the organization level, and at the individual level. More specifically, I argue that the leadership of marginalized minority groups can occur when, first, broader social movements encourage the acceptance of multiple stigmatized or marginalized identities. Secondly, when organizations engage in multi-identity work, meaning that they recognize the various marginalized identities of their members, and that they take deliberate action to be inclusive. And third, when individuals are both conscious of how their own multiple identities can affect their life chances, and are then inspired to take action against the various forms of oppression. To illustrate a case of intersectional mobilization, I draw on a case study based in California. I study the DREAM movement, and I believe this case is important because in California, we have the largest immigrant rights movement, and young people have been very active to support the DREAM Act and other immigrant rights efforts for over 15 years. My data from this article come from the California Young Adult Study, which is an investigation of youth transitions to adulthood. For this particular article, I draw on web surveys collected from 410 undocumented youth activists, and also draw on interviews with 50 survey participants. My own data from California suggests that queer youth activists are more civically engaged than their straight identified counterparts. Specifically, the LGBTQ identified activists belong to more organizations, are more likely to share their perspective online, and they're more likely to protest than their straight peers. The interview data help explain some of the social mechanisms that lead to high levels of involvement among these LGBTQ members. Well, at the broader movement level, the National Coming Out of the Shadows effort drew links between the disclosure of a queer identity and legal status. Social movement spillover, or the adoption of the LGBTQ movement's coming out strategy by the immigrant youth movement, produced what I call a boomerang effect. In fact, coming out of the shadows not only added fuel to the immigrant rights movement, it also emboldened immigrant activists to adopt the strategy for gay rights. So the social movement spillover from the gay rights movement actually reinforced gay rights and produced what I call a boomerang effect. Organizations engage in multi-identity work that fostered inclusivity and combated homophobia. Finally, at the individual level, most straight and queer activists tended to understand how their multiple identities impacted their life experiences. So in summary, my article makes a few contributions. First, it provides some empirical evidence that queer youth comprise a significant proportion of movement participants, and that these undocumented queer youth exhibit particularly high levels of activism.